obviously not your first business, not your first rodeo. So what are some common myths about entrepreneurship that you want to abolish, right? Everybody thinks it's so glamorous, be a founder.
Well, yeah, I think there's lots of myths. And obviously you have that success bias that you only interview me because I've had some successes. There's probably 100 people down the street going, I tried 5 businesses and I lost everything. It's a pretty sad story. But no one wants to hear sad stories. So you do get a survivor bias hugely. I mean, and so young people all go, I want to be Mugs. Oh, probably not Mark Zuckerberg, but I want to be Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a one in, I was going to say 100 million, probably bigger than that. It's a bigger number than that. I mean, he's like, in American history, there's Edison, there's, and with Musk, there's, Jobs, you probably go 5 great innovators that combine technology and business in America, and Elon's probably in the top 3. So, but people think, oh, that's what I want to do. And it's like, well, okay, the reality is that that's probably not going to happen. So anyway, myths about entrepreneurs. Yeah, so I think one of the things about entrepreneurs is, fundamentally they are overly optimistic. I mean, they're just on a bell curve of the population. Looking at optimism, the entrepreneurs are all just crazy optimistic, and they think everything they do is going to be successful. And so you've got to be careful too that that optimism. One person's optimism, you go down the continuum, is delusion. And people, what's the connection between entrepreneurs and con men? I mean, it's because it is the same continuum that one person saying, I'm really optimistic about something, and I'm going to try really hard to build something. And someone who is completely delusional is a con man, because they're saying, this is going to happen and it's not going to happen. It's just not reality. And so there is actually a connection. So you always got. I hate the word entrepreneur because it used to be in the 80s. Connected with Alan Bond and Christopher Case and people who ended up in jails or avoiding jails. But my insight is you've got too much optimism, and you really do. And it's madly, every business I've started has been 100 times harder. Even the latest one, like Student Super, it's like, plenty of experience, I had clean money, and we had a great team, and it's still 100 times harder than I thought it was going to be.
And so lastly, you've built your whole career, all your businesses based on the youth and student sector. So what do you think are the upcoming trends in this area that we haven't seen yet? So what are they going to be wanting, needing, feeling in the future, do you think?
Okay, so if there's any 18 to 24-year-olds watching this, we've just asked a 56-year-old. So
their parents would be.
what do the young kids want? So I have a huge belief in trying to ground everything in reality as much as possible, including my own limitations. And so the answer to your question is a little bit layered. The first layer of the answer is, I'm 56. I'm not living the life of an 18-year-old. I don't. That is not my experience. So there is a massive limit on what my insights are on an 18-year-old. Our solution is we have an office full of 18 to 24-year-olds, and I ask them. I go straight to an 18 and 24-year-old and say, "What do you think?" So I have no expectation that I actually know. There are some big things, because I've lived through multiple generations, and there are some high level things that are different to this generation. In financial services, because that's my focus at the moment, the incredibly low interest rates have just trended lower for 20 years. It's meant house prices go up. And if you talk to an 18 and 24-year-old and they're talking to their mum and dad of what's the smart financial strategy to have in life? Well, mum and dad are like, well, buy property because that's how we've made so much money. And then not just mum and dad's mum and dad, the grandparents. You go back pretty much since 1890, the recession of 1890. If you bought property after that, you've made a ton of money in Australia, and particularly post-war, and then particularly the last 20 years. And so that's the formula. You go buy an investment property, except that formula doesn't work anymore because the properties have gone up in value so much that just the amount of deposit you need as an 18-year-old is just, 20, 25-year-old. It's huge. And the young people are starting to realize, it's pretty easy to realize this. So it's like, well, hang on. If I'm not going to make money how my parents made money, or my grandparents, or even great-grandparents, how am I meant to make money? So suddenly there's a switch to this investing thing, I better learn about that, because that, if I can't invest in property, it looks like I'm going to have to invest in shares. And so people are getting very interested in ETFs, in roundup apps, etc. Easy ways to get me started in the investing world. And so that's definitely a trend that is for this generation. What the cool kids think this week. Actually, I do know the answer to that question, but only for this week.
Okay.
Squid Games, definitely.
Oh my God, that's number one in 90 countries.
Everyone's talking about Squid Games. But any other, detailed insights being able to for us, I'll leave to us.